And that you said that you don't allow teachers to use as a strategy, compare and contrast lessons?
Oh, no, absolutely they do.
You allow it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And I can't make a blanket statement about how 1,082 school districts do it. But you know, we set the standards, which is what we want kids to know, and then local districts figure out how to teach it. In some of the early days, the school districts that forced teachers to use these lessons, they wouldn't allow them to take that and customize it or edit it. But they realized real quick that was a bad decision, and they changed it and said, take it, use it. In fact, the analogy one of my superintendents gave me is C-scope is like a recipe. And the state board asked the teachers to bake a cake, and C-scope is a recipe. And the first time you bake it, you're going to follow that recipe line by line by line. After you've made it a few times, you'll add something here or there. You'll bake it a little longer. You'll turn the temperature. You'll make it your own versus following it step by step, because you don't need those steps anymore. And so that's the brand new teacher compared to the master teacher of how closely you're going to follow that recipe. But you know, professional development, teaching peers. You know, my wife was dropped in and had never prepared a lesson plan, and but for the two other teachers that taught Spanish, she would have drowned. But you know, but luckily for her, the state standards for foreign language are 3 pages long. She has lots of latitude to teach Spanish or any foreign language. In a class like social studies, that at the elementary level, the standards for social studies, and don't quote me on this because I've got lots of numbers, but I think it's 45 pages of standards for K through 5. It's a lot. It's a whole lot of material. It's too much. But some of the teachers blame C-scope for making a move too fast. Well, it's not C-scope. It's C-scope's trying to cover all the standards passed by the State Board of Education.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Anderson, and I just wanted to tell everybody that I moved to Texas to get away from Common Core. I was in Ohio, so I know Common Core, and it is a bad process. And Microsoft has dumped hundreds of millions of dollars pushing this in 45 states, and I think that
Actually,
you know
the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has. Microsoft as a corporation is not.
Okay, same thing. Anyway, I know Common Core inside and out because my son was going to that school, and I hated it. So I picked Texas because I read that Texas said no to Common Core. Well, C-scope is its twin sister. And what you left out is on the lesson plans, there were more than 3 controversial lesson plans.
And those are the main 3. Yeah.
I have copies of 3 right here that demonize the USA, blaming us for 9/11. You forgot about that one. And you forgot to mention who writes the lesson plans, the people behind the scenes of Common Core and C-scope.
We just said 1,600 teachers.
No, I'm talking about the people on the top level of it. Like Linda Darling Hammond, Bill Ayers is connected with her. All the radical Marxists that are pushing this agenda are the ones writing the lessons and sending them down. Yes, I have copies of them here.
Of which
And if a
lessons?
teacher
Common
can't
Core?
write a lesson plan, they should not be teaching. They should be able to write their own lesson plans. They shouldn't depend on C-scope.
I'm going to go back to the question that these people that you named,
Linda Darling Hammond,
they are writing C-scope lesson
they're
plans?
writing the basis of Common Core.
But Common Core and C-scope
It
are
is
two
the
different
same,
things.
yes ma'am. Yes ma'am. It is. If you dig a little deeper, it is.
Well, except
Can I insert something real quick?
Your
In
name?
the original paperwork, my name is Stacy McMahon. Hi, Thomas. In the original paperwork for C-scope, one of the experts that was to help create it by C-scope was listed as Linda Darling Hammond. They didn't have Common Core on the papers. They had Linda Darling Hammond on C-scope. She's been since removed from that document.
Right.
okay.
That was my only addition to what Ron was saying.
So C-scope was created 4 years before Common Core was ever envisioned.
Common Core came out in 2006.
You're going to believe that it's Common Core, and I'm telling you, it covers the Texas standards.
Well, that's what I was told when I moved here, but
Okay.
then I dig a little deeper and a little deeper, and I see all these lesson plans that are pretty left-leaning, progressive-wise anyway.
Common Core doesn't have social studies, it has math and English.
I'm
So,
aware of that.
so social studies lessons can't be Common Core because there's no such thing as Common Core social studies.
But it is very closely aligned to it, is my point.
How is it aligned if it doesn't even exist? Common Core has no social studies, so how is it aligned to
I'm
something that
talking
doesn't
about
exist?
the lesson plans, the way they're written. This one here, talking about 9/11, and it blames the USA for making bad decisions. I've got it right here. This
What,
one
what
glorifies
is-
Hugo Chavez, or Cesar Chavez, sorry. And this one puts Lady Liberty on the same level as a Sphinx. So these have all been changed, I realize that.
Well,
But- and they
the
talk
first
about,
thing- Okay,
you know,
I'm going to stop this right now because we're not asking questions, we're making statements, and I'm going to say,
No, I'm asking a question. So,
but you've been told 3 times that Common Core and Cisco are not the same, that the lesson plans are now open to the public, and that there is no social studies in Common Core. Now,
yes, ma'am, I got that.
okay,
So
let's move.
My question is, you talked about, the cost of a textbook being $80, but why don't you tell the people how much they paid for Cisco,
$7 per student.
the total cost?
I just know it's $7 per student for any school district. Now it's $5 because the lessons are gone, so it's $5 per student.
As opposed to what?
Well, Irving ISD just voted, their school board just voted to drop C-Scope and develop their own. And it was in the Dallas Morning News that they spent $1.3 million to develop their own curriculum, and they were spending $187,000 a year for C-Scope. And that's their decision. They wanted to write their own, and that's perfectly within their school board's latitude to do it. If they think that's what's best for their students, great. I want them to make the best decision for Irving ISD. But Microsoft has not done anything with Common Core, and even if they had, they've never asked me to do anything with Common Core, and I am 100% opposed to Common Core in Texas. I want Texas to adopt our own standards. The reason why I'm such a local control guy is because the closer to the child the decision is made, the better it is for that child. From Marshall to Austin is a big enough gap. I don't want to go from Marshall to Washington, D.C. So Common Core is not in Texas. We're not teaching Common Core. We are teaching the Texas standards. And if you find that a school district is teaching Common Core, call me, call the commissioner, call the attorney general, and turn that school district in because they are breaking the law. It is not legal to teach something other than the Texas standards in a Texas public school, period. So if there's a specific district, report them and have it shut down.
Can you explain why parents weren't allowed to see the lesson plans for the longest time? When I moved here, my school district said, oh, go to this portal and you can see all this stuff. Well, it was very generic. It wasn't the actual lesson plans. And so I called back and I said, I can't see what is actually being taught. Oh yeah, they have to fix that, and they never did.
Did you ever go sit down with the teacher and just look
I'm
at
going to go and look at every lesson plan list.
But
Did you in the past?
No, I just moved here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what school district do your kids go to?
I'm in Longview,
Okay. Longview or Pine Tree or?
Spring Hill.
Okay. Of course, now they're all online. I don't even, does Spring Hill use, I don't even know if they
Not
use
yet.
C-Scope.
They're using the assessments.
The C-Scope tests or the sound?
My name is Vic Verma. Question, you were talking about the standards, in terms of the length of the standards, maybe, forgive me, this may be an ignorant question.
That's
but,
all right.
You were talking about the length of the standards and C-Scope's requirement to address that. Has there talk about shortening the standards or within the Board of Education, or how does that, is that something that's discussed, or in terms of, that maybe if the standards are, still, they don't lose their rigor, but they still have the effectiveness, then that may be helpful?
It is absolutely, we've started talking, I talked about it when I first ran in 2009, 2010. Excuse me. One of my colleagues that's new to the board, who's also the state FFA president, is laser focused on this issue. And he chairs the Committee on Instruction, and they had one public hearing July or March, I can't remember which, but he is there, and I think the commissioner has hired a company or a consultant to to look at how long are our standards. Are they too long? Do they match up with the number of instructional days? Because you hear the term end-of-course test that the legislature makes the students take. They require the test, we require what's on it. But the test doesn't come at the end of the course. The test for English Language Arts comes at like day 130 out of 180-day school year. So you can't match up the standards for a 180-day school year if you're giving them the test on day 130, which begs the question, what do they do for the other 50 days? But yes, we are looking at shortening the standards. What we would like to do is, when we first are going to do new standards for a subject, we get teachers, business people, parents, experts from around the state, and in some cases around the country, to write the new standards. But up until now, they've never said, okay, let's get an estimate of how many instructional days it's going to take to cover these things, to make sure it matches. So we want to add that to the process to say, okay, before you bring us a new set of standards, tell us how many days it's going to take a typical kid or a typical teacher and a typical kid to cover and master it. And then once we do that, then when it gets to the state board, if we want to add something, we got to take something else out. We can't just keep piling on. Because I think what has happened is we've mistaken length for rigor, and we need to replace it with depth. It's the Texas essential knowledge and skills, but what's ironic is we don't have a definition for what essential is. So we're trying to think about it a little more strategically, and we don't have any specific subject in mind. We just know that generally speaking, our standards are just too long. And foreign language, with standards that are 3 pages long, kids are learning foreign language in Texas. So we don't have to micromanage the teacher. We don't have to have standards that are 50 pages. Tell them what we want to know, and let the teacher and the parents and the school boards figure out how to get them there.
Yes, I'm just going to steal something that not that loud, but and I can tell a couple of notes here. I wanted to go back to something that she
Tell us who you are.
asked Lori. I wanted to go back to something that she asked about the early beginnings of C-Scope and how it was developed. And I was just thinking that it just seems unethical to take the taxpayer money to create our education system in Texas. Basically took our taxpayer money, created another entity with that to create a product that they then sold back to us that we have to pay for. And I'm wondering, that just doesn't seem ethical or right, and I'm wondering who actually owns C-Scope.
Who gets that money, that's what she's trying to say.
Well, no, who owns it? Like, we shouldn't have to, who gets the money, and why do we have to pay for it again if we paid to create it? We actually paid for the whole process through our tax dollars.
Right.
And we created it, so we therefore should have part ownership in that. And I'm not quite, plus it come to find out that the schools have been being overcharged for it. And so I don't know how you reconcile all of that, and who's accountable for that? Who is being held accountable for following that money off? Where is that money going? And who owns C-Scope?